In this video, we're going to talk about modules. And a module in Python is something that houses classes, variables, functions that we can use over and over again. Now, up to this point, you've probably used modules and not even known what was on the back end of them. But Python allows us to see a lot of the modules that are available. Now, there's more modules than what we're fixing to look at here that you can download and install on your own, but we're going to go to the Python documentation. And if you haven't been looking at the Python documentation up to this point, it is a very valuable resource. And the way you access it is just you can Google search it, Python documentation, or you can go to docs.python.org. And as you can see over there, just real quick, you can see all of the different versions of Python, and you can even see versions of Python that are in development or in pre-release if you want to read ahead at that documentation. But we're going to real quick come down here to the global module index, and that's going to take us to a list of a lot of the modules that are available. And this is alphabetized, and you can just go through here and search and find all kinds of stuff, things that you may have used up to this point, like say the math module. And when you click on that link, it's going to tell you everything that that module can do. So once you import that module, you have access to all of these things. So in this video, rather than just importing one of these huge modules and using it, I think it might help if we make our own module so you can see how this works. So we're going to start off by just in our normal window setting up some variables. So we'll say x equals 5 and y equals 8. And we're going to make our own math module. So traditionally you could just add these two together, say w equals x plus y, and then print w, and our output will be 13. But instead of doing it this way, we're going to create our own little math module so that we can pull this in. So the way we're going to do that, and again we're using Replit for this tutorial, but you can do this in a lot of the compilers that are out there. We're going to add a file, and we're going to name our file math mod, and we need to make sure that we also use the extension .py, so it's a Python file, and hit enter, and it's just going to open up a brand new window for us like we're used to. And just to keep this simple, we're just going to make 4 functions, and we're going to pass the variables to these functions. So remember, we create a function by defining it first, and then we're going to name our function. We're going to call it add, and we want to be able to pass the two variables x and y. So then whatever's underneath this definition is what's going to happen with these variables and what we're going to get from the function. So we want to return x plus y. And we'll make our next function, and we'll call that sub for subtract. We'll pass y, x and y, and we want to return x minus y. For our third one, we're going to define our function as a division function, so div we'll name it x, y, and we want to return x divided by y. And our last function we're going to define as multiply. We'll pass x and y to it, and we will return x times y. Alright, so this is our module that we've set up here. We're going to go back to our main file, and we're going to change this up a little bit. Alright, traditionally, if we want to pull in a function, we would say import, and then we would name the function. However, when we're calling our own function, what we want to do is we want to call it from the name of the function, and then import. We can import portions of the module, or we can import the entire module by typing star. So this imports all of the math module that we created. And then the way we're going to use this is print, and then we're going to call one of the functions that we want to use from our module. So we're going to call add in this case. So print add, and then the variables that we're going to pass. And when we run that, we see that it adds the two numbers together. If we want to subtract, all we need to do is change what we're calling here, and it subtracts them. Same with the division. And the multiplication. Now let's import the actual math module real quick. So import math, and that's going to allow us to use the functionality that we saw in our documentation. So we'll click on math, and we'll come down here and we'll just use the square root. So math sqrt for the square root, and pass the variable. So we'll call math.sqrt and pass the variable for x. And we see that now we've pulled in that functionality from math. We also have the ability to pull in both, so we can leave our from math mod import all. So now we have the functionality of the math module, and we have the functionality of the module that we created over here. So I would suggest going through this documentation, finding a module that is of interest to you, and reading the documentation, seeing what all that particular module will do, and play around with it so you can get comfortable with the modules.